Welcome to London, the libel capital of the world.
£600,000 in damages.
This is the High Court, where QCs and judges decide who pays and who gets paid.
If they said to me, you can have £1 million, that might be tempting.
Some people find what newspapers print or television says unforgivable.
The headlines were the most damaging, you lying bitch. They've called me an out-and-out liar.
Some people will do anything to set the record straight.
To decide the meaning of these words will have cost £200,000.
So why get yourself into this position? Why take the risk?
I want justice. However much I don't want to go to court, I will.
So be careful what you say. See you in court may be the most expensive words you'll ever hear.
Hey, Paul, good to see you.
Tonight, two controversial figures fight back against the journalism they say feeds the false impression people have of them.
Beautiful day.
Uri Geller pursues Britain's biggest tabloid and American television over his relationship with Michael Jackson.
I do not understand how an editor of such a big newspaper allows his journalists to print such garbage.
Former Metropolitan Police Commander Ali Desai has long been a controversial figure.
He would call himself the Marmite policeman. Some like him, some hate him.
In the summer of 2009, Ali Desai is suing two different newspapers for stories he claims are not true.
I'm going to ask my lawyer to cause the maximum damage to the Daily Mail, so the bigger the better. 6 figures, no problem at all.
The career of Ali Desai, one of the most controversial figures in British policing, is almost certainly over tonight after he was jailed for corruption.
On February the 8th, 2010, Ali Desai, a Scotland Yard commander, was jailed for 4 years for perverting the course of justice and misconduct in office. His appeal against the conviction has just been heard by 3 appeal court judges, on the basis that the key witness in the case lied in court. As Ali Desai rose to be one of the most senior Muslim policemen in Britain, he attracted considerable press attention. In 2009, he decides to sue over this article in the News of the World.
It basically said top cop paraded an illegal immigrant around Commons. That's what it said. He took a potential suicide bomber to the heart of the British establishment. And as a commander in Scotland Yard, that is a serious neglect of duty. Terrible professional misjudgment.
The potential for damage to Ali Desai's reputation seems clear. So he wants his lawyer, Eddie Paladorio's advice on the grounds for legal action.
What we're doing is we're focusing on the parts of the article that are defamatory. What they say is, race row cop Ali Desai employed an illegal immigrant as his right-hand man and took him to the heart of the British establishment. Then they tell their readers how they can reveal that you twice took him to the House of Commons, you allowed him to meet a former Home Secretary, and you invited him to Scotland Yard. Then comes the fascinating part. They say, I could have smuggled in a bomb and blown the place up if I'd wanted. Those 2 allegations are pretty serious, particularly given what you do and so on.
Usually kiss and tell stories involves a nice attractive lady or something. I've never had an experience of a kiss and tell story involving your gardener.
The article came from an interview with Desai's former gardener, who was subsequently found to be an illegal immigrant, jailed for 15 months and deported from the UK. Ali did take him to visit the House of Commons, but they both followed all the standard security procedures.
When you enter the House of Commons, everybody gets searched. I, as a police officer in uniform, get searched. I'm a commander, I'm wearing full uniform, I've got my warrant card, why are you searching me? And say, well, you know, security applies to all. So how can a normal person walk in and bypass the entire security of the House of Commons? This paper wrote this about me on the word of a dishonest criminal who has served sentence of 7 months imprisonment and had to be deported. And it's outrageous. They said I took him to Scotland Yard. Well, hang on a minute. Entry to Scotland Yard is clearly monitored by CCTV, which is kept for 5 years.
Yes.
Everyone who enters Scotland Yard is given a ticket and an ID card.
Yes.
Right? So it's just a matter of fact, isn't it? Whether he went to Scotland Yard?
You know you didn't take him there, and the Scotland Yard records show you didn't take him there. So they've got a mountain to climb. I think it's one of those occasions of careless or reckless journalism, which all looks nice and great fun for the newspaper, but is doing serious damage to you, your family, causing a lot of distress, causing a lot of anxiety. There are many things in here which I know you would find irritating and insulting. Don't commit. It's not worth doing over every last thing.
I understand, and some of them are very irritating. This article, it starts with a race row cop, shows belly dancer, you know, total disregard for my wife's identity. And of course, no other police officer's wife or child tries their hat on. It's only Ali Desai. It's terrible, isn't it? But sorry, I just feel really emotional about it.
You're quite right. My advice on that would be that it often is unwise to, as it were, throw in the kitchen sink when you've got a couple of very clear, very damaging accusations against you, which basically lower your reputation in the minds of right-thinking people. That's essentially the test. That's something that's actionable. That is something for which you can get redress in the courts. If we need to go to the court to get the remedy, then of course we shall.
Thank you very much.
This is a very big column. It's about celebrities, it's about show business. Look at this insulting headline, Uri Sillyberg. It said, I'm in business with Michael Jackson. Not only cutting an album, but with this song they're going to save the world from the financial problems. Come on.
It's the spring of 2009, and what's made Uri furious is an article in The Sun alleging that he and Michael Jackson are proposing that a hidden subliminal message is added to the single released by the X Factor winner. In London, Michael Jackson has just announced his comeback tour.
In my career, I have sort of tossed off many stories that kind of were not true and called me names and so forth. But this is another story altogether. I say to everyone, I've no contact with Michael Jackson whatsoever. And suddenly this story comes and tells an opposite side. This is making me look like a hypocrite. And that's what made me pick up the phone and call Paul Tweed.
Uri's lawyer, Paul Tweed, is an internationally renowned libel lawyer with a clutch of other celebrity clients, including Britney Spears, Liam Neeson and J-Lo.
I mean, I've got to take Uri's reputation as it was 20 seconds before that article hit the newsstands. So it's against that background that I'm reading the article, and I have to decide, has his reputation been lowered in the minds of right-thinking people?
Hello, Mr. Paul Tweed.
The story tells people that, hey, I'm Michael Jackson's buddy and I do these strange and weird things. If I would read anything like this in this newspaper about anyone else, I would believe that.
Yeah, yes,
the way I contacted Simon Cowell and discussions with Michael Jackson. Yes, I used to know Michael Jackson. Everyone knows that. But it's been now at least 2 or 3 years, maybe even 4 years, that I haven't been in touch with him.
They've quite clearly stated that you have been in conversation with Michael Jackson, you're no contact with him whatsoever. That is highly defamatory.
I do not understand how an editor of such a big newspaper allows his journalists to print such garbage.
They should always ask the subject of the article,
exactly.
Is this true? I just want to explain those aspects of the article that I feel we should take action in relation to. There is a significant distinction between an allegation that is defamatory and what would be regarded as mere vulgar abuse. Now, for instance, it refers to you as a silly Burke, which is, gratuitous, offensive comment. But if that was the only basis of this article, I'd be saying, leave it. Let's just ignore it, turn the other cheek. But the article totally undermines your reputation and your credibility. Anyone who has read this article and then subsequently hears you denying that you've had any contact with Michael Jackson automatically assumes you're lying. You're a hypocrite. You're a man that cannot be relied on.
Absolutely.
And that will be the focus of the legal proceedings that I'm now advising that we issue.
Yeah. These type of newspapers also are on the tabletops of commissioning editors, whether it's ITV or BBC 2 or BBC 1 or Channel 5 or Channel 4. Now, you just think, you find this newspaper on the desk of a commissioning editor and he reads it. Come on, what does he think about me? That's what annoys me, angers me. Character assassination.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's what it boils down to.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that I will not take.
Yeah.
Enough is enough.
In 2009, when he was still a free man, Commander Desai often complained that he was a victim of character assassination, citing frequent negative press as he was promoted through the ranks of the police.
There has been over 40 articles written about him in the last 8 years. It's relentless. Every time I apply for promotion, a day or so before my interview, they will write a piece saying, of course, because of his colour, he will bound to be getting this. The Met is scared to refuse him because he will sue them for race discrimination. And it's not rocket science to tabulate what the intention is. They use these articles in order to persuade, encourage my employer, certain sections of my employer, to then use that either to discipline me or prosecute. The most dangerous man in the Met, very pejorative language used to describe me, always reference to sex, drugs and rock and roll throughout. Policeman at centre of race row receives 90k salary. Black officers revolt as Mate Chief Desai is suspended. Muslim in police race row is passed over for promotion. They can't make their mind whether I'm black, Muslim or both. The officer who is a disgrace to his uniform. Oh, that's a good one. Apparently I'm a racist myself. Racist songs of police chiefs who says I'm a victim of witch hunt. Apparently I don't like black people, Asian people, Welsh and Scottish. Apparently I don't like the human race. If you take all of these articles and cherry pick a common denominator words from 9 years ago, the same words come up: prostitutes, drugs, corruption. And of course he was found not guilty on all of those. But if he was not found guilty on all of those, why over 8 years you keep on repeating them?
But one article in particular, published by the Daily Mail, has infuriated Ali Desai because of its personal nature. It indirectly accuses him of being in a bigamous relationship.
Natalie Desai, his glamorous wife. And it concludes by saying that I still have an open marriage with her and I have a live-in lover who's my current wife. Now, I found that extremely distressful.
The mistake in all of this is really how they finished the piece, by saying, however, there is no record of a divorce. This is plainly wrong. In fact, they had been divorced some time before, and that simple fact was just simply ignored. Now that was very hurtful and very painful for both of them.
My family, because they don't live here, they live in Iran, and they worried about me, and they rang me and they asked me, is Ali still married to Natalie, his ex-wife, and it embarrassed me.
What is ironic, Daily Mail was camping outside my marriage ceremony when I was getting married to my second wife.
This is a picture from our wedding, and even I remember the Daily Mail photographers was outside restaurant, and then they knew about our wedding.
So it's a question of the left hand not talking to the right hand.
It was ridiculous. It could have been checked. They could have asked him. He would have clarified it instantly. But it caused hurt to all three of them.
We have written a letter before action, put the complaint fully and squarely to the Daily Mail. If a newspaper is going after somebody, sometimes that person simply has to fight back, take a stand, and if they win their case, usually that may signify a different approach between said newspaper and said individual.
Ladies and gentlemen, Uri Geller.
Questions have been asked about Uri Geller from his first appearance on television bending spoons in the 1970s.
Surprisingly extreme.
Look, it's becoming like plastic. Look, it's very...
His claims to have mystifying powers have attracted controversy ever since.
You know, I've been around for a long time, and throughout my 40-year career, I think there are many stories that called me names and so forth. Every successful man or controversial person has enemies. That's it.
But it's his former relationship with another controversial figure that has caused him to call in the lawyers. 3 months into his libel action, there's a truly shocking development.
Good evening. We have breaking news for you tonight. The singer Michael Jackson is reported to have died from a heart attack.
The day Michael died, probably 40 minutes after it happened, I got a phone call, and I simply could not believe it. And the journalist told me, Mr. Geller, do you know about Michael Jackson? Is it true? I thought I'm dreaming, and I thought to myself, I must be dreaming. This is a horror film, and I'm going to wake up from it. It's not possible. And I thought it was a hoax, and I slammed the phone down, angry. Then I immediately opened the television, and there was reality. Michael Jackson passed away. It was very hard because we're very strong and powerful friends for many years. How many times was Michael Jackson best man in people's wedding? I don't know, but he was my best man. The first question was, when did you talk to him last? They all wanted me to say, oh, I spoke to him yesterday.
In fact, the once close friends had grown apart, and Uri hadn't seen Jackson for over 3 years. But his sudden death makes Uri more determined than ever to get redress from the Sun.
You're hitting 2 people in one big story. It's not fair for Michael. You see, it's one thing about me, but putting aside my ego, what about Michael Jackson? This is not fair.
It's only 4 days since Michael Jackson's death, but Paul Tweed has to see Uri about a surprising discovery he's made about the source of the story that appeared in The Sun.
Incredible as this might seem, the basis of the story was an email that was passed to The Sun that was purportedly from Uri to Simon Cowell, indicating that Uri and, quote, his friend Michael Jackson would combine their respective mental powers to solve the economic crisis. Now, I don't know, I'd be very reluctant to make any specific comments on this, but I find it quite incredible, obviously, that a story should be based solely on this piece of information.
Do you know, Paul, I find this so bizarre, strange, and almost paranormal that here we are dealing with Michael Jackson's name.
Yeah.
And, you know, he dies. I find it very strange.
Yeah, absolutely.
Out of all the times, all the years, of all the decades.
So it's very sad, and as I say, in a sense, this is not about the late Michael Jackson, of course. It is about the reputation of Uri Geller, and they're completely separate issues.
Paul wants to show Uri a copy of the email that the article was based on.
To my dear friend Simon, this is purportedly from you. It has come to my attention that the world we currently inhabit has become prey to the negative forces that occasionally take control in this universe. But I have a plan, along with my very great friend and fellow guardian of the universe, Michael Jackson. If you would agree to integrate this recording subliminally into the single released by this year's X Factor winner, then untold masses will hear and act upon the requests, triggering the subconscious into great feats of positive channeling. Together we can change the world, together we can heal the world, together we can save the world. All my respect, Uri Geller Freud.
It's absolutely not me. I don't use these type of phrases, and I never sign Uri Geller Freud, although my name in my passport is Uri Geller Freud, but that's common knowledge, everyone knows that.
We exchange emails on a regular basis, and I'm very familiar with your style of writing, the style of email you send. You have never, in any of your emails, used the last name Freud. That is absolutely nothing like the style of your approach. Absolutely nothing. But I find it quite incredible that the paper latched onto this and published.
Any journalist would immediately know that an email can be faked easily. And the Sun's mistake was simply not to do the very simple thing and pick up the phone and call me.
Yeah. The Sun are saying that they did attempt to contact you, and if they couldn't get hold of you, of course, the simple answer is they shouldn't have published.
They send something of this nature to damage your credibility, and they hope that it will be published, and in this case it was. The Sun fell for this email. This is a fake document, and it's definitely written out of malice.
It's 6 months before his subsequent trial and conviction, and Ali Desai is still intent in fighting for his reputation.
He seems to be one of those characters that polarises people and the press. I think it's the nature of the role he takes. He's a very strong supporter of ethnic minority rights and the National Black Police Association, and feels strongly that in many cases wrongs have been done. Morning, Ali. How are you?
Good to see you.
Good to see you. Good to see you.
Hi.
Right.
The reason I brought this action is because every time something like this comes out, this is the kind of correspondence that I get. Scumbag. I have read the Daily Mail, and that you are a Paki scum. I have one thing to say to you. Fuck off back to Iran, where you come from. You will never be English. I'm waiting for your response, you Paki scumbag. So this is a Daily Mail reader. Sent to Scotland Yard. You know, I've got a whole file of these.
Enchanting stuff.
Articles.
But there is progress to report in the Daily Mail bigamy case.
They've made an offer of amends, which means that they will essentially apologise and retract what was said, and then offer to pay you damages and pay your costs and so forth. Where we've got to is the difference between what they're prepared to say by way of apology and retraction. At the moment, this is what they're prepared to say. In an article published 21 June 2008, we reported the results of a search from the Principal Registry of the Family Division that there was no record of a divorce between Ali Desai and Natalie Downing. In fact, decree absolute had been obtained in July 2005, 2 years before his marriage to Shahami Desai, but due to an error of the court, the divorce was not registered centrally. We are happy to clarify the position and apologise to all concerned.
Basically, they're saying it's not their fault. it's the court record, which is completely nonsense, because all of this could have been avoided if they simply called us.
Well, that's right. It's a mealy-mouthed apology, and it doesn't go far enough, and it seeks to just sort of push the blame elsewhere and to sort of.
And to be honest, it's very simple. I'm not going to accept that. So,
yeah.
I mean, that's just simply not good enough.
We're going to insist that it should say an article in the Mail of Saturday, 21 June 2008, wrongly suggested that Commander Ali Desai of Met Police was not divorced from his former wife, Natalie Downing, and that they were still married when he married Shahame Desai. Yeah. In fact, they had divorced in July 2005.
Yeah, fact.
Our regrettable mistake has been the cause of considerable embarrassment and distress.
Fact, that's why I brought this claim.
And then finally, we sincerely apologise to Commander and Mrs. Desai for our error. Then there's the question of where it should appear, the prominence and the position. From their point of view, the most valuable part of each page is the top right-hand corner. The theory being, as you open and flick through your paper, the eyes go firstly to the top half of the right page. We should return to them, I think, with a package which includes the apology, the position of it, the prominence of it, and your request for damages. And then we'll see what they respond with.
I would like maximum damages because I want maximum fine. So I'm going to ask my lawyer to cause the maximum damage to the Daily Mail and to the Associated Newspaper, because that is my relief and that's the relief for my family. What I would like is the shareholders of the Associated Newspapers at the end of their financial year look around and say, oh my God, why did we pay this person a six-figure sum? Can we get someone to account? Can we get the Daily Mail editor to account for this? And that is what I would like. So the bigger the better. 6 figures, no problem at all.
The connection between Uri Geller and Michael Jackson has now led to another libel case. In the aftermath of Jackson's death, Uri believes he has been libelled again on American television, and he wants Paul Tweed to see the threats that have resulted.
Hi Uri, Paul here. We're just on the way. I've just landed at Heathrow, so I'll be out with you in about 25 minutes, hopefully.
The libel stems from Uri's involvement with the infamous 2003 documentary When Martin Bashir interviewed Jackson.
How often? All the time. It's not sexual, but we're going to sleep. I tuck them in. I put a little music on.
It was controversial because Michael Jackson talked about his relationship with children.
You know, we have little cookies. It's very charming.
Hey, Paul. Hey, good to see you again.
It was Uri Geller who introduced Jackson to Bashir. Uri was paid $200,000, which he gave to charity.
All right, how are you personally, Arnie Klein, dealing with all this?
But in the coverage of the star's death on Larry King Live, one of Jackson's doctors, Arnold Klein, claimed that Uri made money out of that introduction.
In their script, which was available on CNN, today when you say something on television, it's immediately on the internet. And even if you try to remove it, if the people will agree to remove it, the offending line, it stays in the cache of Google. So anyone really searching will find it. The certain doctor said, Uri Geller was responsible for that, meaning I was responsible for the Martin Bashir infamous interview. And then he goes on to say, Uri Geller sold that interview to Martin Bashir for $200,000. Obviously, that insinuates that I pocketed the money selling Michael Jackson. You can imagine how angry one gets if, someone is accusing you to profiting on Michael Jackson's name.
And now Uri has received a deluge of hate mail from angry Michael Jackson fans.
We will remember Michael Jackson for the $200,000 you sold him to Bashir for the interview. You sound so sincere about Michael's passing, yet You sold him down the river to Bashir. What a traitor you are, Uri. Glad you aren't my friend. I mean, it's terrible. It's shocking. Thanks for helping killing the hero of millions of people. Thank you, Uri. You're such a great man. And you see, this manufactured other stories. I just saw a story yesterday that said something like Uri Geller would pull out his grandmother's teeth to sell them. You know, when the documentary came out, the money went to a good cause. So lots of sick children probably benefited from the money that was raised for that documentary. This is the worst thing that could have been said about me in the last decades.
And it was just darn right false.
And it was on a national, global, it was on a global network that broadcasts worldwide.
So anything that they broadcast is going to have that bit more credibility. You have got evidence. We can show to them the damage that's been caused to you by these poisonous emails that have been coming into you. And it's because you're so well known that this is happening.
You see, Paul, it's not those emails in particular, because those are targeting me personally. But say I'm negotiating a deal and somebody in that company does a search just to see, you know, what I've been doing lately and so on. And then comes up to this website, comes onto a website that says that I pocketed money and I betrayed Michael Jackson. Don't touch him. Let's find someone else. And that is where the major damage comes in.
The words were totally wrong, totally false. Should never have been broadcast in the first place. We know that it's wrong, but the world out there doesn't. And so he's having to take the pain.
We've put them on notice that they need to broadcast a full and proper and categoric retraction and apology. He is also entitled to substantial damages for the injury to his reputation. They caused the damage, they've got to pay the price, and they've got to correct the damage caused.
It's February 2010, and as his lawyer tries to progress Ali Desai's 2 libel claims, his client hits the headlines again.
Ali Desai, one of Scotland Yard's most senior commanders, is facing criminal charges. The police watchdog, the IPCC, has been advised there is sufficient evidence to prosecute him with misconduct in public office and perverting the course of justice.
I'm going to face a criminal trial where my liberty is at stake.
Ali is accused of wrongly arresting a man that he had a business dispute with.
The person I arrested made a complaint against me. In essence, disputed evidence. So I say he was rude and so forth, and he says, no, I wasn't rude, and therefore the arrest was unlawful.
The concern for Ali is that newspaper stories like the 2 he is suing over may have a damaging effect on his criminal trial.
My fear is this will not stop and unduly influence the mind of a jury.
It's very hard to pinpoint the gradual damage to somebody's reputation over a period of time that the drip, drip, drip of certain articles from one or from different papers can have on somebody's reputation.
But Ali is determined to press on with the libel cases, though progress is slow. News of the World still haven't taken evidence from the man whose story their article was based on. The man who claimed Ali had bypassed security to take him inside the House of Commons in Scotland Yard. A man who subsequently was jailed for having a fake passport and deported.
They say the delay is because they want to see their witness one more time, and that has to be in person because he does not speak English. His English is very poor, and in order for them to do their defence, they need to look him in the white of the eye and ask him the questions and take a statement, possibly with the interpreter. As I have told my lawyers, I spoke to him English. This guy some time ago gave me a CV when he wanted work, and I've got that CV here, written in English. He is well versed with Windows XP. He's a structured thinker, innate mathematical and logical ability. This is the key bit here. Excellent language and communication skills.
Ali is convinced, but the News of the World is sticking with its need to go abroad and interview the witness in person.
News of the World, their defence was due to be received by us last Friday.
Yeah.
It hasn't arrived, and in fact what they did is to ask for more time.
And cause me, my colleagues, my family, more pain, more anxiety.
They've got an extra 14 days, but clearly on some notice now that time is running out and that they must now produce their defence. So we would expect it within the next 2 weeks, and then we'll be able to go through and see what the process.
I mean, you know my views about this case. I get really emotional about this particular case because this caused me a lot of problem. Why don't they just stop this?
The most important thing is you're crystal clear. You did not take him through the House of Commons bypassing security. You did not do the same thing at Scotland Yard. We shall see. The next 14 days will give us the answer, I think, on that one.
In the bigamy libel, both the Daily Mail and its sister paper, the Evening Standard, have come through with their revised offer.
The two newspapers have accepted that they are wrong. They will shortly publish an apology, which they now have, for all to see, and have agreed to pay substantial damages and substantial costs of all the parties in the Iran Times as well. This is not the first time that the Daily Mail has been forced to apologise to the Desai family.
I'm very pleased, and particularly I think it's been a very good result for my wife and my ex-wife.
I was very happy when Daily Mail apologized for us. Every newspaper wrote about the apologies, and I happy, and my family are happy. In Iran, in front page, the newspaper, it says Daily Mail apologies to Ali Desai. My family saw the newspaper and they checked it in the internet from the Daily Mail, and they sure about this, and yeah, everything was okay.
It's a fantastic result in every angle. If I continue to win substantial damages, then maybe someone might have the creativity to get a calculator and add the cost and say, well, you know, do you think...
It's costing us to keep attacking this chap, yes indeed.
Because at the end of the day, I'm not interested in the money and I'm not interested in the apology. I just don't want them to do this to me.
False accusations.
I just don't want accusation.
Absolutely right.
The Sun have now agreed there is no factual basis to the splash piece they wrote, linking Yuri, Michael Jackson and Simon Cowell. Yuri's lawyer, Paul Tweed, knows what he wants from the apology.
This was a fairly high-profile article. You certainly couldn't miss it. And so I would expect them to reciprocate by giving the apology a very, very prominent position towards the front of the paper.
The reality when it arrives is very different.
Well, the apology was published. Obviously, as you can see here, it was a relatively small, we call them the postage stamp apologies.
However, Paul makes the best of it.
The whole trick is to ensure that you get appropriate prominence in the paper. So we've got above the crease, close to the front of the paper, so that people will pick it up. The BBC, among others, picked it up and gave it a good headline coverage. A number of the newspapers as well gave coverage. Uri was very satisfied once the record had been set straight.
I was happy with their apology because most apologies today by the newspapers and magazines are so tiny that you have to not even look for them with a magnifying glass, but with a microscope. They're so tiny.
Great. So I said yes. Brilliant.
As Paul Tweed hosts a party in London for his clients, he wants to talk to Yuri about the CNN position. The broadcaster is reluctant to settle over a claim on American television that he'd sold Michael Jackson to Martin Bashir.
It is such a black and white issue. I mean, Klein made an absolutely outrageous allegation, totally untrue.
Now, CNN published what they're describing as a clarification, but it didn't go nearly far enough.
In connection with a comment made by our guest, Dr. Arnold Klein, on Wednesday's program, we were contacted by Uri Geller, who said he did not personally receive any money whatsoever in connection with the Martin Bashir interview of Michael Jackson. The doctor had said he did.
The big difficulty that I am up against is that CNN, in common with all American broadcasters and publishers, are very sensitive about their First Amendment rights, about their freedom of speech issues, and it's a very frustrating and difficult area for, a UK lawyer like me to deal with. They just do not want to have to concede anything that might compromise what they perceive as their fundamental rights there. Right. But we are seeking the apology be published is what we want. We want online, something in permanent form that's going to be out there. Yeah. And we are seeking damages, substantial damages. But they wanted this proof that you have not benefited financially, personally, from the Bashir interview.
Of course not.
And more importantly, even again, that any monies that were paid have gone straight to charity. We got this letter in from Tim Drucker.
Who's my personal solicitor.
Absolutely. And so we now have a letter stating in clear and categoric terms that free charities were the beneficiaries of any monies that were paid.
I did not profit a penny out of the monies that ITV paid. It all went to charity, every penny.
Even they have to accept that, not only that they've published something false, but that it has led to ongoing damage of a very serious nature to you.
All those millions of people who saw it and believe in it, because it's there, it's written out there.
So I'm hoping that this will get the case put over the line and we can get the settlement.
Okay.
It's taken 13 months of negotiation to get the News of the World to apologise for their inaccurate two-page story about Ali Desai's supposed breach of security. It's still 2 months before he stands trial in his criminal case.
Quite hard to find compared to the story itself, but here it is. It's on page 19, and they then say, we now accept that this was not the case and that there were no security breaches, nor did he or his wife knowingly employ an illegal immigrant. We apologise to Commander Desai for the distress and embarrassment caused by our report. There's nothing there to draw the reader's attention to the fact that this is an apology or a retraction. What's that? It's an inch by 2 inches at best. It doesn't have anything like the same prominence. It's very galling, and this happens time and again. That claimants who succeed in getting an apology never get to see much resemblance between the original article and the apology.
However, the real challenge for Desai and his legal team lies elsewhere, at his criminal trial in front of a jury.
The jury agreed today that Commander Ali Desai abused his position as a senior police officer when he threatened and arrested an innocent man with whom he had a personal dispute.
Guilty verdict and prison for a once powerful figure held up as a role model for younger ethnic minority officers and even tipped as a future chief constable.
Ali Desai was sentenced to 4 years for perverting the course of justice and for misconduct in public office.
I saw a very, very surprised and shocked person. It seems to me it came as a complete bolt out of the blue for him, and I saw a very, very shocked person.
Ali is now appealing the verdict.
I've spoken to Ali today, and he updated me as to the new dates for the permission to appeal hearing.
Is he using the same criminal legal team as before?
He is, yes.
It's complete speculation as to what each member of the jury thought about Ali, if they thought anything about him before he entered the courtroom. But undoubtedly, when that person is standing in a dock and being judged, it cannot help, let me put it that way, it simply cannot help if somebody's reputation has been damaged in the eyes of the public, and then they have to face a trial of that nature.
Paul Tweed has an outline settlement that he's negotiated with CNN to present to Yuri. But there's a condition that could pose a problem for him. Yuri's determined the public know the truth about him. CNN are demanding that what is agreed is totally confidential.
You know, we're in this position today where, you know, we've obviously got to make decisions. What does a confidentiality agreement normally entail? You cannot indicate if you've been paid damages, never mind the amount of damages. You can't indicate the fact of damages and costs. You cannot discuss the fact of a settlement. That's a compromise that a client has to decide whether to make it or not. I've got to speak to him today, and if he accepts that, that's his call.
Hey,
good to see
Paul,
you again.
good to see you. Thank you for coming. Was your flight watching so?
There is a confidentiality clause. All you can say are basically the statement that we have agreed, and what you can do is you can then refer. Then we're allowed, if somebody asks you to say, look, please to say that the case has now been settled on amicable terms, but I would refer you to the CNN website.
Okay.
Everyone has parted in good terms here. Really what we have agreed, you know, we can state that the matter has been resolved amicably.
Yes.
Between the parties on confidential terms. That's as far as I can go.
Okay. I think Paul worked very, very hard to get to this amicable settlement, which is, in today's day and age, is quite normal. I am obviously elated that I can refer anyone to check out their website. The process has been terminated. That's it. I'm very, very happy.
Paul Tweed is in no doubt that Yuri's settlement is in his best interest, but he is worried about the increasing pressure for confidentiality. He fears the public simply won't be aware that what they read or saw was wrong and eventually corrected.
Well, certainly, I mean, if it was my case, if I was bringing a libel, I wouldn't agree to confidentiality, I can tell you that, you know, I wouldn't. But having said that, there are these financial considerations and enforcement considerations. I would say of the UK cases we're acting in, at the most 10% would be subject to a confidentiality clause, at the very most, against 100% of the American cases. If they say they want confidentiality in a case, I've got very, very limited options. You know, I either say no deal, or I try to negotiate for the client a scenario where he gets his reputation vindicated, but the extent of that vindication is not revealed.
Next on BBC One, Scott Mills is in Uganda, the world's worst place to be gay. Well, on BBC 4 now, accurate accounts are key to the conviction of criminals when it boils down to the eyewitness.